So in today's video, let's discuss what's more important, getting the shot or image quality, and also show you how I lit and shot this image. So hi everyone, this is Jiggie, a portrait and wedding photographer from the Philippines, and welcome to the channel. So before anything else, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel and would want to learn more about off-camera flash photography or maybe just photography in general, then this channel is for you. So you might want to consider subscribing, and while you're at it, click that notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. And if you want to see more of my images, you could always find me on Instagram. It's at Jiggie Alejandrino. So before we get into the discussion on whether or not what's more important is image quality or getting the shot, I'll take you behind the scenes during one of my engagement shoots and show you a possible scenario in which the image quality could have been better, or was it important for me to have gotten that shot at that particular moment. So here goes. This first image that you are seeing is basically a straight out of the camera photograph from my assistant photographer with no light. You could see here in the background that the skies weren't as blue as how you would want it to be, and the shadows will actually tell you that this was shot at about 11-12 o'clock in the afternoon. So the sun was really high above, and it was cloudy, but it wasn't the cloud type that would give you very soft light. So we've had hard light and coming from above. Therefore, you could see it here in the shadows are unflattering because it is hard light and the direction of the light was coming from above. And that's why I needed my off-camera flash to do something about this one. And that's exactly what I did here in this next image. So the flash that I was using here was my Photix Indra 500. The Photix Indra 500 is a studio strobe that's battery operated. Therefore, it allows me to bring it to locations like this one, which was in Pililla, Rizal, about an hour away from Metro Manila. This flash also is capable of high-speed sync and TTL. Now, the camera that I used for this particular shoot was my Sony a7R Mark III in a 16-35 f4 lens. So my flash is set here with a standard reflector and a grid so that I could just focus the light on them. You could see that this particular behind the scenes photo is a bit underexposed already, therefore giving you blue light here. So this is how it looked like when I started practicing or doing my test shots. Again, just a standard reflector. The reason why I had a standard reflector is because one thing I like doing is always matching the quality of my artificial light to the quality of that of my existing ambient light. And as I showed you guys earlier, my existing ambient light was hard light. Therefore, I created hard light also, but from a different direction. Therefore, removing those unflattering over the head type of shadows and just removing it completely from my subjects. This is actually the shot straight out of the camera that I was able to capture with my 16-35, and this is the processed image. So that's how I shot it. That's how I lit and shot it. And my settings were 1/250 f22 ISO 100. I needed to be at f22 so that I can stay within my flash sync speed and still maximize the power of my flash. Which brings us now to the second part of this video, whether or not we get diffraction, or what diffraction really is, what it does to image quality. Can this particular image be better in terms of image quality? And for me to be able to answer that question, I'm gonna bring in a very good friend, a landscape photographer, and another Sony brand ambassador. This is actually his specialty because he uses a lot of ND filters. You guys might be asking the question why I didn't use an ND filter for this particular image, because I didn't have one. So I needed to be able to get the shot and not have an ND filter, so I needed to stop down at f22. So going back, so my friend will join me soon. His name is Nicco Valenzuela, and he's actually more versed in this particular topic than I am, so time for me to call him in. All right, Nicco, come on in. Hi, Nicco.
Hey.
All right, say hello to everyone.
Hello everyone, this is Nicco Valenzuela, not Jiggie Alejandrino, not a portrait and wedding photographer.
You have Nicco as a landscape photographer, and if you guys want to check out his work, he also has a YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description below, together with your Instagram and whatever social media.
No pressure, guys.
Yeah, social media account. All right, Nicco. The problem with this particular image, all right, is that a lot of questions probably from you guys would be, why shoot at f22? Now, I shot at f22 because I needed to stay within my flash sync speed, which was 1/250 at that time, and I needed to overpower the sun. So I was actually shooting this about 2 stops underexposed. Now, the most common question would be, how does diffraction is something that, well, you'll explain it, because to be honest, for me, I never really cared about it. And for me, the images look okay. But Nicco is here to really explain how it affects your image and whether or not it's something that you should resort to in any case that you don't have an ND filter. So Nicco, take the...
Okay, so if you look at diffraction in the simplest way possible.
Okay.
Well, let's not get into the physics of it. But basically, diffraction happens when you're shooting with a very small aperture.
In this case, f22.
In this case, f22, which is most of the time the case. And basically, the question is, are you actually getting enough diffraction to ruin the image quality?
So, but what is diffraction?
Diffraction happens when the hole through which you are resolving the image is too small.
Which is f22.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, look at it as light waves.
Okay.
And when you are shooting with a bigger aperture, the light waves are going straight.
Okay.
When you're shooting with a smaller aperture, the light waves are dispersing.
So they go in a small hole, then they go out. All right.
So
okay.
it's actually also the principle of why we get the nice sunburst or starburst.
Which is what you use very often. That's why
Yes.
Nicco is the one that's here talking about it. Because as landscape photographers, they actually shoot at f22
Yes.
to get that burst of light.
Yes.
But that's also lens dependent, right? There's some
It is,
lenses
it is.
that hold well in terms of starburst, and there's some
Yes.
lenses that don't. Okay. So the biggest question is, how does it really affect image quality?
So basically what happens is that when it disperses, you resolve in a not optimal manner.
Okay.
Long story short, what happens is you get a little less sharpness. So
Okay.
what we're getting at is that decrease in sharpness actually something to be bothered about?
Exactly. That's exactly why I wanted you here, because there are 2 questions that I need answered. Number 1, if I didn't shoot at f22, I wouldn't have been able to get this shot. So I needed to lose a bit of image quality. But how is the image quality really going to affect the image? Meaning, where is the degradation of the image going to be? Number 2, would it have been better if I shot with an ND filter? Now, we will also discuss on whether or not it would be better for us to shoot with a cheap ND filter, or would it degrade the image even more if I used a cheap ND filter compared to a very high-end ND filter? All right, so again, Nicco, so first question, how does diffraction really, can you really see the diffraction in an image
Well,
like
we
this?
should take a look.
Go ahead, here.
Now, if you're not using any materials or any tools to actually measure the resolution and the sharpness,
Yes.
then you're gonna have to just basically take a look at it and tell yourself if it is sharp or not.
But it's acceptable.
Yeah.
And you were saying something about diffraction really degrading image quality more in the corners
Yes.
rather than the
Yes,
center.
because if we go back to what I said about how it happens, it's dispersing on the sides.
Okay.
So imagine this is the sensor of your camera,
Yes.
and this is your lens and the
Okay.
aperture. Of course, the most beneficial, as with technically anything about optics,
All right.
the most beneficial part or the most satisfying part of the
It's
lens is always the center,
Yes.
right?
That's why center sharpness.
Yes.
Yes.
So the thing to understand about diffraction is that you can actually also spare your image from degradation from diffraction by just avoiding the important parts and putting them in the center, which is something that you actually did in this photo.
Because the reason why they're in center also, since I was shooting at wide angle, the distortion of a wide angle lens will
Yes.
always be on the edges. So the center is your safest bet
Yes.
to keep your subjects not distorted.
Yes.
All right.
So if you're already avoiding the perspective distortion from the wide angle lens, you're actually already also sparing your subject from the effects of the fraction.
Okay.
And the question is, are you still happy with
Of course.
how it turned out?
Of course. Because I'd rather get the image rather than say that the image quality may degrade a little bit. But right now, if you really look at it, it looks, I'm happy with the image. Now, they would ask, why not use an ND filter? Because I didn't have one. Sorry, I really didn't have one during that time. But would you choose a cheap ND filter or would you just use diffraction?
Oh, definitely not. I would just want to stop it down to f22.
If you were just going to be using a cheap ND filter, because what will happen if you use a cheap ND filter?
Worst case for a cheap ND filter, for one, it really blurs it out.
Okay.
Second is color cast.
Yes.
And maybe even a flare.
Oh yeah.
Maybe even a vignette.
Well, the vignette's nice.
It depends if it,
of course.
the vignette's nice. Fits your artistic intent.
Exactly. So, but if we had a good ND filter, it would always still be a better option than stopping down to f22.
Yeah.
But stopping down to f22 is really just a lazier option. Because it's a lot easier to just stop down in f22 instead of having to put a filter or a very ND filter for that matter.
Yeah. So if you have a way to use an ND filter with good quality,
then by all means
do it.
Yeah, sorry.
But if the question is, do you avoid stopping down to f22 when you don't have any other choice? I say no.
Exactly. So that's why it's about getting the image more than the image quality. I think that should answer the question.
Yeah.
But again, all these things, to be honest, these are nitpicking. Because when you look at the image, I'm actually very happy with the image already. And I have no complaints. The client has no complaints over the image. And it's important that we are just able to get the shot. And of course, this is a lighting channel. The important thing is that you get the light right. So again, what I did with this light is that I actually underexposed the scene by about 2 stops. That's why I needed to go on f22. I shot at 1/250 to stay within my flash sync speed to get the most out of my flash. And I was able to remove all the shadows in their faces and make it look pleasing to the eye and make it look, that's a very nice image, right? Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you very much, Nicco, for joining me. And make sure to follow him on his YouTube channel. He does a lot of fantastic reviews. He teaches landscapes there and almost everything. Basically, it's a jack of all trades type of YouTube channel.
Just never portraits, guys.
Just never portraits and never lighting. But soon, maybe I will actually join this channel and talk about lighting for landscape photography, and that should really be fun. Actually, we'll figure out a way on how to do something.
Let's see.
Because technically, this is a landscape photograph with a human element in it.
Yeah, it's still a portrait.
It's still a portrait, of course. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, do like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell. Then if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Jiggie Alejandrino, and it's Nicco Valenzuela also on Instagram. Okay? So again, also, if you have any comments or if you have any violent reactions to what Nicco said, not me, but what Nicco said, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Okay, guys? Till the next video.